All right. Well, yeah. So, this is an actual client that we did an agent confrontation with, which I'll explain to you how we always set up an agent confrontation. Um, but there's a lot of cash value sold in Las Vegas, and so this client, when we sat down with them, they didn't just become a client, and now today are clients, but they're also crusaders for us. I had a guy who's in our office who works at a liquor store, and when he was working at the liquor store, he was wearing a Primerica shirt, and these cash value agents were giving him a hard time and just talking. Obviously, like cash value agents do all this theory and philosophy and stuff. And this client, who we're about ready to break down this cash value policy with, goes off on the cash value agents, talking about how they ripped her off and took advantage of her family, sell the worst product in the world. And so I love it. They're not just a client, but they're also crusaders. And that's because they really understand what we taught them, And so anytime we do an agent confrontation, the way it works is I always like to get the policy in advance and really go through it. And this is the actual presentation I did at that agent confrontation. So it's not like I put this after the fact. This is what I prepared when I went back with the client. They're really influential people in our city. And so I wanted to make sure that I was super prepared. I also knew that it was going to be a confrontation where that agent was going to be there. So when we set it up, I'm always super prepared. I go through their policies, I highlight everything, and then I put together just a quick presentation like we're going to go through today. And it's designed to overcome any objection that I've ever gotten from a cash value agent. So with that being said, when you do it, you want to sit down and when you sit down with the client and then the agents there, obviously, when I started, I always say, all right, what we're going to do is we're going to take an hour, and I'm going to give the cash value agent an hour, and I'm in 30 minutes, and I'm going to take 30 minutes. And at the end of the hour, the client decides who stays and who leaves. And it also always needs to be done at the client's home or a third party location, never at the cash value agent's office. Otherwise, the cash value agent will kick you out, keep the client there, and you're going to lose that every time. So once I've got everybody in the room, we go through that. Then I start my recorder. And so I say, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to record this, John and Mary, the client, and I'm going to record this just to make sure that we all say things that are legal, right? Because if we're not recording it, any of us can say anything and have no ramifications. But I want to record it so that everybody knows that this is recorded, and we also have to tell the truth. So, John, Mary, you don't mind that I record this for truth purposes, do you? And they go, no. And I go, okay, Mr. Agent, so what is your name and what company are you with? And if he says, I don't want it recorded, and I would just tell the client, because sometimes that happens, is tell the client, say, hey, you understand he doesn't want to record it because he wants to know that everything he told you isn't recorded, because we can't use, then we can't use it against him. But if it is recorded, we can use it against him. But I'm willing to be recorded. So now record, say, hey, John with Transamerica, what is your name? And I'm Jeff FIELDSTAD with Primerica. And so we're going to record this conversation. And so I say, okay, go ahead and take your first 30 minutes. So once I get, he goes through his first 30 minutes, then I take my 30 minutes, right? And what happened on this appointment, he said, well, why don't you just go ahead? And I said, no, we're here because we're replacing your policy. So we're going to give you the opportunity to keep the client. And he goes, well, I wasn't really prepared. And I go, well, it's not my fault that their future isn't important enough to you to get prepared. But it's important to me. So I'm very prepared today. So go ahead and talk to these guys for 30 minutes about whatever you want to talk to them about, why they should keep this policy. And then I'm going to go through it at the end. So he takes his 30 minutes. I just write down anything that I may have missed that I need to go over. The first thing I always do is I start with a few videos. So I always start with a couple of videos that, whether it's Suzy Orman or Dave Ramsey or whatever, talking about the negatives of cash value life insurance. Being that it was Transamerica, there's actually a phenomenal videos on YouTube talking about Transamerica universal life policies have ruined people's lives and all this kind of stuff. So I showed a couple of those videos. After I show those videos, then I go, all right, so let's talk about what you guys have. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to go through the contract and understand that this is a contract. So it doesn't matter what I say, what the agent says. What matters is what's in the contract, because if your agent's dead, it doesn't matter what he says. If you go to court, the only thing holding up in court is the contract. And so we have these insurance contracts, and they tell us exactly what's going to happen if we understand how to read them. So let's start on the first page. First of all, I want you guys to understand what index universal life insurance is, right? So Index universal life insurance is just a subset of a kind of life insurance called universal life. There's also another name for it called flexible premium adjustable life. Now, when there's different names for it, you might have index universal life, variable universal life, just universal life. The only difference between those products is where the money is invested, right? So there's three basic parts. You can go ahead and go to the next page. So there's three basic parts to when it comes to universal life insurance. Number one is you have annual renewable term insurance, which means every year you own the policy, the cost of your insurance goes up inside of the policy. Even though your premiums don't change, your cost for insuring goes up every single year. And John and Mary, it's actually the most expensive form of insurance you can ever buy. All right. And number two is you have fees. So after you paid for insurance, then you've got to pay for fees. Now, anything left over after insurance and fees will go into a savings or investment vehicle attached to this insurance policy. In your guys' policy, you have what's called an index universal life. So they attach it to an index. When they attach it to an index, they usually use the S&P 500, which is always funny to me because if I'm right, John and Mary, they probably scared you and saying, what happens if the market falls? What happens if the market goes up and down and all this kind of stuff? But they're putting your money into an index, they've told you, which is the market itself. So let's go to the next page, right? So this just kind of shows kind of what you have. And so I just want to recap what you have right now and what they've promised you. So James, you're age 36. You have $300,000 of index universal life insurance. You also have a $300,000 rider that I didn't put on here. I'll talk about why here in a second. You're paying $250 a month. Brandy, you're 34 years old. You have $300,000 of index universal life insurance, and you're paying $210 a month. So your total premiums are $460 a month. And at 67, you're non-guaranteed. So best case scenario inside of this policy, the illustration they use to sell you on this policy, not the guaranteed, but the non-guaranteed. So best case scenario, James, you're going to have $45,000 in your policy. Brandy, you're going to have $152,000 in your policy. So if we do some math from the age of 36 and 34 until the age you're both 67, you will have paid in $176,000 of premiums. Your non-guaranteed assumptions, you're going to have $197,000, which is a growth of $21,000, which is 0.9% rate of return is their best case scenario they're going to give you. James and Brandy, I'm sure you'd agree, you can get a better rate of return than that at the bank right now. So let's talk about this, okay? You go to the next page. This is your actual contract as we go through it. So on your initial contract, go back one. On your initial contract, there's of initial face amount, and that is the flexible premium adjustable life insurance with an indexed option, if you notice at the bottom, right? So one of the things that I always like to point out is it says, and it's not highlighted, but just below it says non-participating, no dividends. So it'd say John and Mary, or James and Brandy, right, in this situation. So when they sat down and sold you this policy, they probably talked to you about dividends and that how dividends is going to grow the amount you have saved and all this kind of stuff. I say, but there's two kind of dividends in this world. And I look at the agent, I go, agent, do you know what the two kinds of dividends are? Because these agents are hardly ever securities licensed. So they almost always have only an insurance license. I say, and they'll usually say something like, oh, what happens when an investment grows? The investment company pays a percentage of the growth of those investments back to the shareholder. I go, that's correct if it's an investment, but you don't have an investment license. In the world of insurance, a dividend is an overpayment of premium. That is the definition of a dividend. So James and Brandy, as he's been selling you this policy in dividends, he's been bragging about that they're going to overcharge you. Because that's all a dividend is an overpayment of premium, and they're giving you the money back that they overcharged you. So when they talk about dividends, understand it's totally different than an investment industry, okay? So if we go to the next page, it shows you guys have $300,000 of insurance. You have a death benefit option of increasing. Now, James and Brandy, when you bought this life insurance policy, who chose that death benefit option for you? Was it you or the agent? Probably the agent, right? Because, you know, who knows? You don't even know what that means. Now, it does mean you're going to get the life insurance and the savings portion. I'll explain that here in a second. But my point is, you didn't choose it because it makes the fees higher inside of your policy. But you also have this rider, and it says a basic policy of $300,000 in coverage that you're paying $82 a month for. And then you have a substandard charge you got rated. So you're paying an extra $6 to own that basic substandard policy. And it says, right, that is a rider. And so we have to know, if you go to the next page, it tells us where they're getting the cost. In fact, if you go 2 pages over, right? So it tells us what the rider is. And then, yeah, on that page right there, it says, while this rider is in effect, so go back 1 page. So while this rider is in effect, we will take one more. Go back 1 more. There you go. So that is the base insured rider. And then if you go forward 1 page, it'll have this is, while the rider is in effect, we will take monthly charges for this rider from the policy value. So it says the monthly charge for this rider equals the rider cost of insurance rate multiplied by the rider death benefit divided by 1,000. I'm going to explain to you how they calculate it, but the 2 things I want you to know. Number 1 is how they calculate your cost of insurance on this rider. And number 2 is that you're not actually paying a premium out of your pocket for it. They're actually withdrawing it directly from your cash value. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and assume that this is free, right? Because if I calculated all these numbers on you having $600,000 of insurance, it would be far worse than it is. Okay. So if you go to the next page, it tells us your planned premium is $250 a month. You went 1 too many. So $250 a month is your planned premium. Now, James and Brandy, I know that's the amount you have been paying, but understand this. It says right here, you have this minimum monthly no lapse premium. And it says that's $244.50, which means as long as you pay $244.50, you never take a loan, you never borrow any money out of the policy, you never reduce the coverage, you never increase the coverage, you don't change anything, that this policy will at least stay in force for 20 years. What do you think happens if you pay that same premium on the 21st year? It lapses, right? So $244, you're only paying $250. So you're only paying $5.50 more than the no lapse premium. And it tells you basically it's going to lapse in 21 years because they're only guaranteeing that it stay in force for 20. Let's figure out why. If you go to the next page, this tells us how they calculate your cost of insurance. So James and Brandy, you buy insurance just like you buy gasoline. You buy gasoline per gallon. You buy fruit by the pound. You buy insurance per 1,000, right? So if you look at these numbers, it says for James, your policy, the male monthly cost of insurance per 1,000, right? So the way it works is if you take this number, so if you see at the age of 36 when you bought this policy, if you get your calculator out. Now, what I always do is have the client get their calculator out so they can do the math with me. Again, my biggest thing is teaching them how it works, just like I would a new recruit. So if I teach them how it works, I would never own one of these. And the reason why I would never own one is because I know how it works. So I have this philosophy that I can teach the client how it works. They would never own one either if they fully understand how it works, right? So I have them get out their calculator. I say, okay, now this is your monthly cost of insurance. So what you do is you take 0.0975 and you multiply that by 300. Why? Because it's how much cost of insurance. You have $300,000 of insurance. Because it's per 1,000, if you have 300,000 of insurance, you multiply that cost by 300, it tells you how much your cost of insurance is. You see that? And they go, yes. I go, now notice what happens to the cost every single year. It starts at 0.09, then it goes to 0.1, 0.11, 0.117, 0.12, 0.13. What's happening to the cost of insurance every year? It's going up. So think about this, James and Brandy. Are you sending them the same amount of money every month? And they go, yes. So your premiums stay the same. But inside of the policy, you have 2 components. You have the insurance cost and then the savings. If your insurance cost goes up every single year, but you're sending them the same amount of money, what has to happen mathematically to the amount you're saving? It has to go down. So, John and Mary, understand that every single year you own this policy, you're saving less and less and less money. okay? And we'll talk about why that's important here in a second. So now if you go to the age of 46, you go 0.22250, you times that by 300. Now that gives you $66.75, your cost of insurance. Now your cost of insurance has doubled. So you're paying twice as much 10 years later for the same amount of insurance. Now, if you go to the age of 56, it's 0.54 times 300. Why times 300, James and Brandy? Because you have 300,000 of insurance. So you take 0.54 times by 300. Now your cost of insurance is $162 a month. Now you're paying 5 times the cost as you were originally when you bought the policy. Now, if you go to the age of 67, it's 1.61666 times by 300 is now $488 a month. But you're only sending them $250 for your policy, James. So where's the difference of that cost coming from? It's coming out of your cash value, which they call an automatic premium loan. So they don't just use that savings to pay for your insurance costs. They actually take a loan, and in a loan, you actually have to pay interest on it, and I'll explain that here in a second. So here they are taking a loan out of your investment to pay for increased premiums that they never told you about. So let's go to the next page. So now that's your cost of insurance and how that works. Now we need to know how your fees work, okay? So the first fee you have is you have this premium expense charge. Now, James and Brandy, the biggest issue with universal life insurance or any kind of cash value is the number one objection agents always have is they didn't fund it correctly. That's what agents always tell them. Well, they didn't fund it correctly. And understand this, James and Brandy, your agent can change the product none. The product is what it is. All they can do is sell you the product and have you pay more or less money into that product, right? Increase or lower premiums. Mm-hmm. Because of this, if you notice, your first fee is a percentage. So if you paid more money, what happens to the fee? It goes up. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that fee is not a fixed fee. It's actually an increasing or decreasing fee based on how much you're paying. Okay, but right now you're paying $250 a month. So get your calculator. You take $250 times by 0.06 is how you get 6%, and that's a $15 fee. So every month they're charging you $15 is like a tax on your premium. It's just a premium expense charge. They're charging you $15 to pay your premiums. And I'm going to show you that here in your statement here in a second. But then you have a policy fee. So they charge you to pay your premium, and then they're going to charge you for owning the policy they just charged you for paying for, which is $12 a month. So then your third fee is a 22 cent per thousand cost. Okay. Now this fee only lasts for 10 years. So how many thousands do you have? 300. So the way you figure out how much this fee is you take 0.22 and you times it by 300. That gives you a cost of $66 a month for that fee. So if we add up all these fees for the first 10 years, you're going to pay $93 a month in fees. You haven't even paid for insurance yet. After the 10th year, that $66 fee falls off and the 27 stays. Okay. You have a surrender charge, which I'm going to talk to you about here in a second. And then you have some loans that they charge you that I'm going to talk to you about here in a second. So go ahead and go to the next page. And so Brandy, now let's look at your policy. You have the exact same policy. If you notice here, same thing, $300,000 of insurance, flexible premium adjustable life with index account option. Yours is also non-participating, no dividends. You also have $300,000 of insurance. You also have that same rider we talked about. You're 34 years of age when you bought the policy. So now you have the same rider. Okay, so we go to the next page. It shows the rider, and then you go to the next page, and it shows how the rider works. Right, so it says the same thing in your policy as it says in James. While the rider is in effect, we're going to take monthly charges from the policy value. The monthly charge for this rider is the cost of insurance rate. Okay. So now if you go to the next page, your plan premium is $210 a month, which is how much you're paying. It also has that no lapse premium we talked about before. Okay. So if you go to the next page, it's going to talk about your cost of insurance, Brandy. So your cost of insurance at age 34 is 0.07083. How many thousands of insurance do you have? 300. So what do we multiply that number by? 300. Why? Because you have 300,000 of insurance. So you take 0.07083 times it by 300. That means your cost of insurance, Brandy, is $21 a month for the first year you own the policy. Now, just like James's policy, what happened every single year to that number? It goes up, right? So every year you own this insurance policy, your cost of insurance goes up, which means the amount you're saving goes down. So now if we go to the age of 44, it's 0.13666 times that by 300. Now your cost of insurance is $40. Now you've doubled your cost of insurance. We go 10 years later, now it's 0.37166, and we times it by 300. Why do we times it by 300? Again, that's how many costs of insurance, or that's how many thousands of insurance you have. So now the cost of insurance at the age of whatever, if it was 44, 54, is $111 a month. So now you're 5 times more expensive than when you originally bought the policy. If we go down to the age of 67, your cost of insurance is 1.1325. Now you're paying $339 a month for your cost of insurance, but you're only sending them 210. So Brandy, where's the difference of the 210 from the 339 coming from? Your savings, which is also a loan, which means they're charging you interest on your own money to pay premiums on your own policy. So let's go to the fees. You have the same fees your husband has. So you've got the 6% premium fee, which is on $210 a month is $12.60. You've got this policy fee, which is $12 a month. And then you have your expense charge per thousand, and you take this 0.2 and we times it by what? 300. Why 300? Because you have 300,000 of insurance. And it says right here that this is per thousand. So now it's 20 cents per thousand. That's a $60 a month fee. Now, if you notice, you also had, just like James had, these indexed charges, which I assume that they gave you no charges. I'm going to show you how high they are in your statement, but I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. If you remember, I gave them the benefit of the doubt by not doing the 600,000 of insurance because you have that rider, but only doing 300,000 of insurance. And I'm also giving the benefit of the doubt of this huge fee on your investment, and I'm assuming that it's not there. Okay, so I'm giving them some massive benefits of the doubt. So your fees, Brandy, are $84.60 per month. You have the surrender charge, which I'll talk about here in just a second. You also have the policy loan, same thing here that we'll talk about. So now if you go to the next page, this is an actual statement. The thing I love when people have actual statements is it shows what I'm saying is true, okay? So James and Brandy, this shows right here that you have $3,609 in policy value, but you have $0 in cash value. And I'm going to show you why that happens here in just a second. But currently right now, you have no money in this policy. It shows you how they charge you all these fees. You see where it says premium expense charges was $180 for the year. It's $15 a month that they took that off of your policy, James. It also shows that they withdrew $1,317 for cost of insurance and any other fees that it says. And so they charged you those fees, and then you paid your premiums of $3,000 on top of all this. And then that left you with a net amount. And then they gave you a surrender charge, which was $6,915. So it says what your surrender charge is right there. If we subtract your surrender charge from how much you have, that leaves us $0. So you actually have no money you can get to right now. So now if you go to the next page, it shows how these fees are charged. So if you notice, when I told you they taxed you on your premium, they're only crediting you for $235 a month into your policy, James. That's because they took that first $15 fee we talked about. They took it off the top. So you don't even get credit for it. Then they also withdrew $81 that month for monthly deductions. And then if you notice where it says index account monthly charge, this is monthly. And so, James, they charge you $4.45 on one account and $4 on another account. So you're paying $8.50 a month in fees on an investment account that's not actually even invested into an investment account. And I'm going to show you that here in a second. And $8 a month is $100 a year on a small amount of investment, which is a huge fee. Okay, I'm going to talk about that here in just a second. Okay. And then we know that you have your monthly deductions on the next page. So go to the next page. So this just shows the breakdown in monthly deductions, your monthly charge of your account. If you notice, it says, you paid $21 in fees that year on your investment account. Okay. So if you go to the next page, how do we know your cost of insurance is going to actually go up? Because agents always tell you, oh, well, it doesn't actually do that. So let's just look at the numbers. If you notice, the first month in July, you paid 109, next month 109, next month 109, next month 109, next month 109. Oh, in December, you paid 117. What happened to your cost of insurance? It went up. Why did it go up? Because that's what happens inside of the policy, okay? So let's go recap these numbers. If you go to the next page, I just showed you how the policy works, okay? So at the age of 36, James, your policy, you're paying $29 for cost of insurance. Brandy, you're paying 21. So your total cost of insurance is 50 bucks. Your fees were 177. So your total cost of insurance for the first year you guys owned this, just for the insurance portion, was 228 bucks a month. You're actually paying more than that because they're actually charging you double that because they're charging you for 600 each. But I'm only assuming they're charging you for 300 each, right? Because of that rider that we're not calculated into this. So you only save $231 a month for the first year. But if we go 10 years down the road, now your cost of insurance is 107. Now remember, that big fee fell off, so now your fees are only 51, and that will be ongoing. So now your cost of insurance is 159, and you saved 300, which looks a little bit better than 10 years prior. But for 9 years, it went up and up and up. Your costs went up and up every year for 9 years, and then that fee fell off. So that's the only thing that changed. At age 56, James, your cost of insurance was 162. Brandy, yours was 111. So your total cost of insurance was $273. Your fees were 51. So now you're paying 325 bucks a month for insurance costs, and the difference went into the savings vehicle of 134. If we go to the age of 67, James, your cost of insurance was 488. Brandy, yours was 339. So now your cost of insurance is 827 bucks a month, plus the fees of 51, which is 879. But you're only sending them 460. So 460 minus 879 is 419 bucks a month. Now that's negative. Where is that negative coming from, James and Brandy? Out of your savings program, right? But they told you. So if you go to the next page, they told you the reason they sold you this policy is by selling you on fear. They told you what happens if the market drops like it did in 08 or 09. And you go, well, that sounds good if you never have a floor, but you also have a cap. So if they sell you on fear that the market could drop and you don't understand how the market works, then yes, that sounds like a good thing. But why is this not a good thing? Because let me ask you, what would your reaction be if I told you when you bought a home that you're only allowed to buy a home in an up market? Like, for example, James and Brandy, when was the best time to buy a house in the United States? In 2009, 2010, 2011. Can we agree? Yes. Why? Because the market just got crushed, so you could get one for cheap. Why do you want to buy a house for cheap? Because when the market comes back, you make a lot of money. So when's the best time to buy a home? Right after the market has crashed. James and Brandy, would you consider buying a home as an investment? Okay. Well, you want to buy an investment when it's cheaper than more expensive. Can we agree on that? Yes. So why would you only want to buy a home in an up market? Because they created a floor value for you to purchase that home. Wouldn't you want to be able to purchase a home for a good value in a down market? Of course you would. So they sell you on the fear, telling you it's a bad thing, not realizing it's a way that offers you to make money when the market goes down. But what if I also told you that your home value is capped on a 15% gain? For example, if you wanted to sell your house right now, real estate has done incredibly well in the last 9 or 10 years in the United States, but it's done more than 15% a year. And so what if I told you that you were only capped on 15%? So when you wanted to sell your house, you notice you have the exact same house as your neighbor, and they sold their house for $400,000, but because yours was capped, you can only sell yours for $300,000. How does that make you feel? Angry, right? Because if you didn't have a cap, you could have made a lot more money on both sides of having no floor and no cap. Can we agree? Yes. So this just shows you, the next page just shows you the floor and the cap. And then the next page, right, you go to, so go to the next page and then go to the next page after that where it shows the, right there. So the next page, this is the hypothetical that your agent used to sell you your policy. Is that right? Yes. Well, if you notice, it guarantees, right, or the non-guaranteed best case scenario at the age of 73, that you're going to have no cash, no insurance, and no policy value. And notice it assumed that you were paying $3,000 in premiums literally until the day your policy lapsed. So they assumed that you're going to pay $3,000 a year for 36 years. And after 36 years of paying $3,000 a year, you end up with no insurance and no cash. Best case scenario. This was right in your illustration that they used to sell you this policy. Here's another thing at the first page. Go to the next page. One of the things I always ask agents, okay, and this is where I put the agent on the spot. I say, I don't show them the part where it says surrender charge. So what I do is I say, Mr. Agent, can you tell me why in one column it says policy value and one column it says cash surrender value? Can you tell me the difference between those columns? And almost 99% of the time, the agent who sold this policy cannot explain the difference between the policy value and the cash surrender value. And by doing that and them not knowing the difference, it makes them look like an idiot, you know? So it's really good because you now have just showed them how everything works. And we just proved that their agent doesn't even know how the policy works, which is the majority of the time. So you say, so I can tell you what it is. What it is, the surrender charge. So if you remember when I talked about your surrender charge, James, your surrender charge is $23.05 per thousand. Now, if it's per thousand, you have $300,000 of insurance. So if you take 23.05, you times it by 300, that gives us a surrender charge of $69.15. How do we know this is right? Because if you go back to your statement, when I showed you your statement, it showed you that your surrender charge was $6,915. Now, I know your agent didn't know how to explain that to you, but this is how you calculate it, okay? Now, here, let me prove to you that this is right. You see on year 5 of your policy where it says that your policy value is $8,448. They say, yeah. I say, take that $8,448, put it in your calculator. It says, okay. I go, now, subtract the surrender charge of $6,915. And guess what the answer is? It's $1,533. So the reason you have no money for the first 4 years is because of that surrender charge. If you notice, these columns are all different until the 15th year was when your surrender charge falls off. So that's why if you can see just below the two boxes, it says that the $32,118 and $32,118, those columns finally become the same now because your surrender charge falls off. So they're charging you a fee to protect your agent's commission for 15 years, right? Now, if we go to the next page, this talks about loans. So James and Brandy, when you put money into this policy, whose money is that? Yours. So if you take a loan, what does that mean? That you borrowed somebody else's money. Like, did you have to get a loan to buy your home? Yeah. Why? Because it wasn't your money. You borrowed money, which means you took a loan. What do you have to do to a loan? You have to pay it back. Right? So this says when a loan is made, an amount equal to the loan will be transferred from the account options to the loan reserve. So what they tell you, James and Brandy, I want you to think about this. If you have $10,000 in your policy, they tell you if you withdraw $5,000, that you're still going to have all $10,000 earning interest. These agents call it a wash loan. It's totally false. And it says right here in your policy, it says when a loan is made, which means you're borrowing your own money, okay? There's a loan because it's really not yours. An amount equal to the loan will be transferred from the account options, which is where your money is invested, into the loan reserve. Now, what does that mean? If you notice up here, it says the loan reserve is credited 2%, but the loan interest rate charged is 3%. So there's a 1% gap. At the bottom of this page, it says the interest is due on each loan on each year and the policy anniversary, so once a year. If you don't pay the interest when it's due, the interest will be added to the loan balance and will also be treated as an additional loan, which is saying, James and Brandy, if you don't pay the insurance company money for borrowing your own money, that they're going to add the money you owe them on top of the loan you owe them and charge you interest on top of the interest they just charge you for borrowing your own money. Does that sound like a wise thing to do financially? No. So let's talk about it. Doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but I want you to understand it is. Why? Because it says made an amount equal to the loan will be transferred from the account options to the loan reserve. Okay, so let's do some math. So you can go to the next page, or you scroll down actually is what it is. So if you have $10,000 and you decide you want to borrow $5,000 out, they're going to charge you 3% on that $5,000, which is $150. and they're going to credit you 2% on the $5,000 that they withdrew. So how much is actually in your investment account now? 0. You had 10 grand in there. You withdrew 5. They took the other 5 and put it in the loan reserve. So you actually have no money in your investment account anymore. They're only crediting you the 5,000 that should be in there, 2%, which is $100. So that's negative $50 or 1%, which doesn't sound like a big deal. But if you go to the next slide, what most people don't understand about money, okay, is because they're charging you interest on top of interest, okay, that 3%, okay, that 3% that they're charging you is now on the new balance. And so now next year, your balance of the loan, if you didn't pay it back, is $51.50. And 3% of $51.50 is $155. That becomes 1.09% of the original $5,000 loan you took. So now it's no longer 1%. So the longer you take a loan, the worse the interest rate gets on it because of compounding interest. Because you only withdrew $5 grand, but now you're paying interest on $51.50. If you go to the third year, now it's 1.2% because now you're paying $160 in interest on top of a loan that you withdrew $5,000 out of originally. Now 3 years down the road, you got a balance of almost $5,500 and you only withdrew $5,000. And they're only crediting you 2%. So the gap between how much you borrowed and how much you owe gets bigger and bigger and bigger every year because of compound interest. John and Mary, you remember when we talked to you about the rule of 72, right? And compounding interest. Now the insurance company has just created that to happen against you and for them because you're paying them the interest. So we got to go to the next page because the reason why insurance agents usually want to scare you from investing into the market is because they don't have an investment license. They only have an insurance license. So they couldn't sell an investment to you if they wanted. They couldn't set up a Roth IRA for you if they wanted to. They don't have a license. And so I researched your agent before I got here, James and Brandy. He doesn't have an investment license. So the only way he can sell you this policy is he sells it to you as an investment for your retirement. That's how he sold you this, right? And they go, yeah. I go, now you know that's against the law, right? He's not allowed to sell you. And this is when the agent usually pops up and goes, no. I go, did he sell you this as an investment? And they go, yes. And I go, well, you understand, even inside of their policy, it says right here, Index Universal Life Insurance is not a security. And a security, when you get an investment license, it's called a securities license. It says an Index Universal Life Insurance policies are not an investment in the stock market or indexes. There is no guarantee that any excess index interest will even be credited above the guaranteed minimum interest rate for this account. So they're telling you that you're not even actually invested into the market. If you go to the next page, it just shows your lapse guarantee, which we already explained. So let's recap this at the end. James and Brandy, you currently have $300,000 in coverage on each of you. You're paying $460 a month. You're going to have $197,000. And best case scenario, you're going to get 0.9% rate of return on your money.
Sorry.
Even though they guaranteed you a floor, you're still only going to get a 0.9%. Now, here's what I'm proposing. So I just talked to you about all the negatives. What I'm going to propose to you, and I'm going to explain to you how this works. James, we put $300,000 on you, 30-year level term. At the age of 66, if I've done my job, James, you don't need life insurance. See, right now, the only benefit you have with your life insurance, if you die, your family gets $300,000. So at any time between now and the age of 66, you don't have the $300,000 saved, but if you pass away, your family will have it, which will allow them to be able to continue on to their plans for retirement. But James, once you're 66, if you have $300,000 or more, do you need life insurance? No. So the only reason someone would want you to keep it after that is so they can continue getting paid. Can we assume that that's correct? And yes. Brandy, we put $300,000 on you, 30-year level term. So by the time you guys' term is over, you'll be 66 and 64 years old. Your total premium for that is $95 a month. We're going to take that 95 and invest the difference of 336 into a Roth IRA. And the projected investment, so all I did, James and Brandy, is this S&P 500 that he says is the index he's using. I just assumed we took that money and put it into an S&P index fund. So I'm going to use the actual investment he's been selling you on. I'm actually going to put that money in there because I have a license to do it and he doesn't. Okay? So if we did that, we don't know what's going to happen the next 30 years, but we know what happened the last 30 years. And if you did that last 30 years, you'd have 1.19 million today. You still paid the same premiums of $176,000, but the assumption is you would have $1.19 million, and that would have been a growth of $1,001,840, which is a net rate of return of over 10%. In the same investment he told you your money was in. So the question is, James and Brandy, where did your money really go? Right? Let's talk about this. We put $300,000 to each of you. It's $95. That's pretty obvious, right? Then you're on the wrong page. We can go to the actual quote. It should show the quote. Oh yeah, there we go. Perfect. So now it's $95 a month. Okay, so we know that's where I get the 95 from. That is what it's going to cost to insure each of you guys for $300,000. Then I take the difference of $4,380 a year. Okay, which is $336 a month, and we put it in a Roth IRA. Why a Roth IRA? Because when it grows tax free, and you withdraw it tax free. Okay, I'm gonna show you that here in a second, because I know your agent told you that you could withdraw from your policy tax free, but that's a lie. There is no such thing as tax-free investment into a life insurance policy. James and Brandy, have you ever wrote off your insurance premiums, your life insurance premiums? No, you never wrote them off. You know why? Deductible. You can't write them off. And if you withdraw money from your life insurance policy, it's a loan. When you got a loan for your mortgage, did you ever pay taxes on that loan? No, because it's a loan. It was somebody else's money. So if you pull a loan, the tax you pay is the interest they charge you. But if the policy lapses and there was a gain, guess what happens to all that gain? It becomes taxable, doesn't it, Mr. and Mrs. Agent? Right? Or Mr. Agent. Yep. So it's not tax-free. In fact, it's taxable. So you couldn't write off the taxes. And then when you withdraw the money, you pay taxes on the growth. So essentially, you're getting double taxed. At least in a traditional IRA, you can put the money in an IRA, deduct it off of your income, and then you pay income taxes on when you pull it out. I'm going to assume you put it in a Roth IRA. You've already paid taxes on your income, and you're going to withdraw tax-free, including the growth. So if we did this from 1987 to 2018, right, which is this was yesterday when I did this, right? It would have grown. You would have invested $145,000. It would have grown to $1.19 million. An average rate of return would have been 10.69%, and that is in an S&P 500 index fund. So let's compare side by side what this looks like, okay, and why I think we need to get this fixed, okay. So James and Brandy, you guys, your total cost of insurance at age 36 and 34 with them was $228 a month. Ours was $95. So you only saved $231 with them, but with us you saved $336. So James and Brandy, if we start right there and we put the money in the same exact investment, you have the same amount of insurance, we put the money in the same exact investment, can they ever win mathematically? No. Well, 10 years later, your cost of insurance with them is $159, but it's still only $95 with us, which means you're saving $300 with them, but you're saving $336 with us. 10 years later, at the age of 56, you're paying $325 for insurance. With us, you're still only paying $95. With them, you're saving only $134, and with us, you're still saving $336. With them, you're paying at age 67, $879. So there's negative $419 coming out of your investment. With us, you don't need life insurance anymore because you have the money saved. And now if you want to continue paying $460 a month, you can continue contributing that $460 to your retirement plans, and that'll just make you have more wealth. So we have this $1.19 million because the thing at the end is agents always say, what about taxes? Well, with your current life insurance policy, you want to know why there's no taxes? Because you didn't have any growth. You'll pay taxes on non-growth. But if you withdrew all that money and let the policy lapse and took the growth out of the policy used for retirement, then you're going to pay tax on that growth. But with us, it's tax-free because it's in a Roth IRA. First of all, you can withdraw it. But I know you guys said you wanted a guaranteed income. So all I did is you go to the next one. All I did is took that $1.1 million and invested it into an annuity that'll give you a guaranteed income for the rest of your life. And you see in this I for Life right here, it starts at $68,000 a year. And as you go down that, some years $73,000, but the lowest year you ever had was $62,000 in income. And when you die, all that income is tax-free, and you leave behind that death benefit to your family tax-free. So you've now created a tax-free income and a tax-free estate to your family. So why do we want to do it in a Roth IRA? Because life insurance agents always talk about taxes, okay? You guys are currently middle-class Americans. You qualify to contribute to a Roth IRA, but they didn't want to set you up in a Roth IRA. They would rather sell you a higher cost cash value life insurance policy because they make more money. So how do we know that a Roth IRA goes tax-free? I just went to irs.gov and pulled this directly from their website. This is a screenshot from their website. And it says a Roth IRA is an individual retirement plan, right? If you notice that. Then down here, it says a qualified, or it says, unlike a traditional IRA, you cannot deduct contributions to a Roth IRA, but if you satisfy the requirements, the distributions are tax-free. Have you ever seen the words tax-free on the IRS website anywhere, James and Britt? No, not except for right there. It's tax-free, even on the growth. As long as you wait till after 59 and a half to withdraw the money, or you're disabled, or you pass away, you can leave it to your beneficiaries, or you buy your first home. So what if taxes go up in the future? It doesn't matter what happens to taxes because your income is tax-free. You can contribute now $6,000 a year, which is $12 grand a year each. That's $1,000 a month. But right now you're only paying $460 for the whole thing. So we don't run into an issue of having to contribute more than $1,000 a month. Your withdrawals are tax-free. It grows tax-free. You don't have to worry about money. So if we go to the last page, James and Brandy, you need to make a decision whether you want to go to Plan A or Plan B. Plan A, they're going to grow your money $21,000, best case scenario. Plan B with us, we're going to grow your money $1,001,840, best case scenario. So you choose. Would you rather have Plan A or Plan B? Plan B. Okay, great. So at the beginning of this, we talked about that we were going to stay here for an hour. He was going to get 30 minutes. I got 30 minutes. I just went over this in 30 minutes. And so after 30 minutes, now that I'm done with my time, you can decide who stays and who leaves. It's up to you. Appreciate your time. So that's how we do it.
Oh. So what happened at the end of that meeting then?
So at the end of that meeting, I swear to God, this is what happened. The cash value agent says, that was the greatest presentation I've ever seen in my life. Looks like my client has a decision to make. And he left. Crazy, huh?
Unbelievable.
So
was he not interested in Primerica, or he just keeps on the same old?
Well, I mean, he runs the T-Mobile arena here, and it's like his dream job, you know. And she actually owns a company that does like wine, you know, they sell wine, and she does like wine parties and stuff. So,
gotcha.
You know, they're just comfortable right now. Time changes, right?
Talking with the Transamerica rep.
Oh yeah, no, I don't even want to recruit him. No way. I would never even, you know, I wouldn't even want to recruit a guy like that, to be honest with you.
Did he know what he was doing? Or was
yeah, he knew.
Really knew. Gotcha.
Yeah, he knew. He was a professor at a university. He knew exactly what he was doing.